Hey guys, and welcome. So what's been happening in the hobby this week? Well, I thought we'd have a little chat about Helbrutes. So in my hobby vlog, would have been now last week, I had a bit of a chat about Death Guard and the new codex. And so I thought I really enjoyed just talking about that, so I thought I'd just, do a bit more of that. So yeah, Helbrutes. Look, I really love them, and between 8th edition, 9th edition, last edition, if we look at like their rules, I really rated them, and everyone I guess sort of saw them as like a trash tier unit for chaos generally, and I guess they are to some extent, but you could really use them well, and I feel like they're sort of an underutilized unit, and they can be really cool, and just I don't know. I've got a few ideas about them that would be cool to see in the future. Maybe it comes with the Chaos Space Marine Codex when it comes out. But I feel like there's some things about them that can be really awesome. Certainly for me, I found using them really cool. And it's a shame that they sort of don't have quite the differentiation from other units of similar points cost in a Chaos Army or in a Death Guard army at the moment, because that's the most recent, I guess, version of them for 9th edition. But yeah, so tracking back, when I got back into the hobby, I wanted to do Death Guard, and so I was looking through the codex, and I always loved dreadnoughts and stuff, and I saw the Helbrute, and one thing I noticed straight away is, you can use these as a fire base. That fire frenzy rule from last edition, double shooting, and because everyone thought of them as a trash tier unit, you could, they could do some work. You put them on a hard flank somewhere out there, they can be quite far away, and then they're 1 CP strat, double shooting, 4 las cannon shots, 2 missile launches, shots a turn. Your opponent starts to realize they should pay attention. But if you design your list well, like I was doing, there are other bigger threats to deal with, so the Helbrute gets kind of overlooked, and that's really what you want. So you get this very dirty little cheap thing going on the side somewhere that's really damaging quite a lot of stuff. If you roll hot for it, it can be pretty good. Not everyone likes las cannons for that reason, because they're a bit swingy, but I found that utilizing that well, and then your opponent really starts to go, oh, hang on a second, I need to sort this out, and so then in the next games you play them, they're going to target it straight away. But if they're doing that, then they're not targeting your Plague Burst crawlers, your haulers, stuff like that, the bigger, tougher stuff that's in your list, and they're getting across the table and doing their work. I mean, the haulers have multi-melters and missile launchers on them. So I found this really, really good. And then towards the end, you had War of the Spider. And War of the Spider just took it to a whole new level. I mean, that Poxmonger thing with the furnace, and the fact that you could now add like a Feel No Pain to your Helbrute, I found that just the perfect combination. The one thing that Helbrutes lack is some kind of Invon save or Feel No Pain save. They just die too quickly. But now that you could do that, oh man, the list just went from good to great, and it was really fun. It was so good, like it wouldn't die. Then I could put it more central. It's getting reroll 1s from a cheap Chaos Lord. You could do some really good stuff with it, and it was just powerful. You rely on that firepower quite heavily. Now coming into 9th. We see a sort of a change for the Helbrute, and some good, some bad. I mean, the -1 reduction is nice, so we have like a different rule now, but it's certainly not as durable as a Feel No Pain. But it does still keep it going, but you got to be much more careful with it. And I still think it really needed some kind of save, like just an Invon save something. I think that would really improve it and set it apart. Your Space Marine counterparts, they get that kind of stuff, Venerables or Contemptors or that kind of thing. And yeah, sure, you can also go that way and get Contemptors and those types of Dreadnoughts from Forge World and get that Invon save. I'm pretty sure they still have a 5+ Invon. But it'd be nice to see it in a plastic kit that Games Workshop sells in the Codex. And so, yeah, that's where I come to now, is I still have this guy on my list, but now the CP strat that you're using on him, I think is either a +1 to hit or something like that, +1 to wound. I think that's what it is. Something along those lines anyway. But basically, it sort of works the same as the double shoot, but you're not getting that. So the average, I guess, hits is going to be similar, but you're not getting, you know, that rolling hot and getting that extra damage. It's going to be averagely a little bit less damage, just because you don't have those extra dice. I mean, you know, 4d6 damage as opposed to 2d6 is, you know, different, right? So you're not quite getting that high end, but you are getting, I guess, more reliable shots per turn, so it's kind of nice. And if he does get wounded now, you get that extra benefit from for shooting as well, which I think is pretty cool. So ultimately, I think that sort of is the same as the double shooting, but I still really love that. So, you know, going forward now, I've played a game with the 9th edition book. What I'm thinking is that really, if you're going to use these Helbrutes, and I really think the only choice is to go the full shooting option. I don't think the close combat options are viable on a Helbrute, just because it's never going to see combat. It's just too fragile. You're never going to get it there. So instead, I think the real thing is you can either go the multi-melter instead of the las cannon, I guess, and the missile launcher, but I just prefer the las cannon because it's a bit longer range and you can just sit it a bit further out. And I think that you're going to want to put it in strategic reserve and spend that CP and keep it off the table first turn, just so that you're guaranteed at least one round of shooting from it. So it can come on a board edge, snipe those shots off, use the strat on it, the fire fever or whatever it's called now, and get the benefit for the shooting there. And then if you're lucky and you position it right, you can at least maybe block some of the shooting in the subsequent turn, and maybe keep it alive for one more round of shooting before it dies. Hopefully by then your opponent's dealing with other stuff, and so that they're not able to really deal with that. Yeah, that's the idea, and so that you can get some of those las cannon shots off at a target that's maybe behind cover, you know, deep backfield, and that's probably going to work pretty well. But then now we come to what I think is, I guess, maybe would be more fun to see, and I really wish, hopefully we'll get it in the next edition, but you know, Space Marine chapters, they get Venerables and like character dreadnoughts and stuff like that, and I really feel like they missed an opportunity here with this codex to give Chaos a similar treatment for this Helbrute. If you had something like you know, call it like an infamous dreadnought, you know, because they're like these crazy, fiendish, wild things, and you know, call it infamous, you know, or some other, you know, name descriptor like that, as an upgrade for Helbrute. Maybe only have it one per detachment, you know, keep it limited. You don't even have to even improve the ballistic and weapon skill. Keep it at 3, because you get the benefits of its rules anyway to buff its hit chances anyhow. But what you could do is just, if you pay for that extra, you get access to an invuln save or a feel no pain save, some kind of 5+ save, either a feel no pain or an invuln. Either one is fine. You know, that would just give it a little bit of durability, and in addition, to make it a little bit more special, a little bit more interesting, and also differentiate it from, let's say, your average Venerable Dreadnought in a Space Marine book. Give it some kind of character rule where it can take Warlord traits. Now you're starting to get a really interesting little Helbrute running, you know. Then you might take close combat options for this guy and get him closer and up and in, and because he's got the invuln save, he'd be able to then, you know, make it to combat, you know, or hopefully make it to combat, you know what I mean? And I think that would be really amazing. So in terms of points, I think what, like a contempt is around that 150 point mark, isn't it? Something around about that sort of range for a 5+ invuln. So maybe something around about that price range, maybe slightly more to account for the Warlord trait that you're probably going to give it, but you're already paying an extra CP to put that on, so you are paying for that. So probably not too much more, but something maybe between 150 and 170, I guess, for a slightly more buffed and, you know, just a slightly better version. Because, for instance, in a Death Guard list, if you could give it a Waller trait, you could give it, the hulking physique, or the other, or what's the other one? So one gives it the +1 wound, and basically, you can't be wounded on less than a 4+. So that's great. Or you give it one with the +1 toughness. So now you're getting like a super durable Helbrute, or you're getting like both are durable, right? But that's just Death Guard. But you could see the benefits, because obviously the other Chaos books are going to get similar treatment, right? Like specialized, buff upgrades to make your units more of that god, right? For Khorne or for Slaanesh or Tzeentch. And you'd get similar Warlord traits. So there's probably going to, and that would go really well with one of these. And so you get this infamous Helbrute that's been plaguing the stars for centuries and centuries, and he becomes like a mini character, but still targetable, right? So doesn't get that full character rules where you can't target it. So it's still just like a normal Helbrute, but it's got that access to an Invuln or a Feel No Pain, and a Warlord trait. And I think that would just make a wonderful centerpiece for your army. And if anyone's listening to this, please spread that idea around, because maybe one day Games Workshop would hear it. But a simple thing like that, which keeps it in range with other points costed units of similar types, but that extra little ability would set it apart from everything else and make you want to choose it over, let's say, a similar type of vehicle in your army. Like for Death Guard, it would be blight haulers and drones. In a normal Chaos army, it might be the spider ones or whatever, or the whatever they're called, or the Mauler Fiends and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like there's so much potential for this unit to be better than it is, with just a subtle tweak, and you could really make this thing sing and make everyone want to take them, and that would increase their sales for plastic kits. It would move people more into buying those rather than sort of scrounging for resin casts of Contemptors, either going through Forge World or the other resellers of similar types, not just like pirated ones, but like people that are sculpting and 3D printing these type of things. You'd go for the plastic kit. It's reasonably priced, and for a dreadnought, and that would give you something cool to put in, convert and put into your army. So I don't know, they're just my thoughts on this, but I still think he's worthwhile. But you definitely want to put him in reserve, I think. Now I don't really feel like the Helbrute's ever going to be worth having straight up. So yeah, I think that's just my thoughts. I think that's where he's at. I still think he's kind of viable, but you just got to be careful with how you play him, and then he's okay. You definitely need other targets that are gonna take some heat off him. Otherwise, yeah, he'll never make it past turn 1, which is a real shame. And so yeah, I would really I hope they do something like that, some sort of upgraded version, so that you can have a cool character, or create that narrative behind your Dready, and hopefully maybe, like I've done here, give some options to remove the head and give like that nice sleek look, so it kind of feels like it is coming from that Dreadnought heritage. I really do prefer this type of armored look rather than the heads. I don't know what anyone else thinks, but I really like that look, and it just tips that tip of the hat to where it's come from, which is that loyalist dreadnought type. But anyway, that's my thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed this little rant about Helbrutes, and I'll continue the Death Guard talk probably next week with my thoughts on Typhus. I think will be the next one. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll catch you next time.